Now is Ece Temelkuran. She has unique insight into Turkey as a journalist and the author of How to Lose a Country, The 7 Steps from Democracy to Dictatorship. Also joining us is Richard Hasen, the author of Election Meltdown, Dirty Tricks, Distrust, and the Threat of American Democracy. He's also a law professor at the University of California, Irvine. Great to see you both. Ece, I want to start with you for perspective. You say there is arrogance in Americans thinking authoritarianism could not happen here. What is your message to them?
Well, we are going through a global crisis of democracy. So no democracy is mature enough to be immune to fascism, rising right-wing populism, or authoritarianism. And no institution is sturdy enough to repel this danger by just dismissing it. This is not only in the United States, in other countries as well, including Great Britain. We are seeing the same thing, and there are global patterns to this slide to fascism or slide to authoritarianism. So my point was, when writing the book, that it didn't happen in Turkey because Turkey was a crazy country. It will happen to all of us unless we start acting together.
So what does democracy collapsing look like? And I know you use the word slide because it's not like you just wake up one day, you're no longer living in a democracy, right? What would it look like? What does that process look like, and what is the end result?
There are many people who think that fascism is a historical concept and it is buried in the battlefield of Second World War. But it is an ideological concept and it's a political tool as well. And it doesn't step into fully formed into the government. It just creeps into the system. They first mobilize and organize ignorance, and they call it a movement. They ask for respect. And when you respect them, you give the stage in the conventional politics. And the first thing they do is elbow all the other political opponents out of the system. And they make ruthlessness, they turn shamelessness into a political and cultural identity that they defend. So fascism or authoritarianism does not only happen on the political level, but it also causes a moral corruption in the country. So it really intrudes into a system. So what we have to do if we want to do something is to recognize the signs soon enough so it doesn't turn into a fully formed authoritarian regime.
Richard, do you see that creep happening in the U.S.?
Well, I certainly think we face this kind of danger. If you go back and look at the years when President Trump was in office, there were attacks on the press, the Democratic Party, the judiciary, the FBI, all of the institutions in the United States that serve as checks on power and that serve as a means of investigating and of providing some kind of a counterweight to the power of the presidency. And so I think it's no accident that Donald Trump was able to succeed as he did in this moment, because social media and otherwise gave him direct access to be able to denigrate these other institutions. And that denigration has continued since he's left office, where you have, according to polls, a majority of Republicans who believe the false statement that the last election was stolen. And if you believe the last election was stolen, you might be willing to do something to try to steal it back the next time around. So I think we're in a very precarious position in the United States right now.
Let's talk about what the latest polls show. A CNN poll last month found that 52% of Americans were not confident that U.S. elections reflect the will of the people. I mean, that is a stunning number. Ece, would you expect citizens of a country like the United States to have a confidence hovering that low? And what does it say to you?
Oh, well, I think we have to remember that to get rid of a mad guy after 4 years in power, the entire institutions in the United States, all the democratic forces had to come together. So this tells us a lot about what state American democracy is. So we shouldn't be arrogant about we shouldn't be too confident about our democracies, because these institutions are made of people, and people can be deceived or people can be too weak to protect the institutions,
And
which
we have
Richard
seen-
already talked about.
Right, and we have seen politicians more than willing to push out lies for their own benefit, right? To persuade the public through lies to be on their side. In Arizona right now, a frontrunner for the Republican nomination for governor is former television anchor Kari Lake, who is now known for delusional conspiracies. I mean, really, look at her Twitter account. If people like her win public office and refuse to certify a rightful winner, then what, Richard?
So we're really in trouble. What kept our democracy going and what prevented a constitutional crisis and a political crisis last time around was the fact that there were heroic Republicans and Democrats, but most importantly, because the pressure was on them, Republicans who stood up to Trump, who were not willing to manipulate the rules to try to put him in power, even though he was the election loser. Well, a lot of those people are either being replaced, are in danger of being replaced, or are right now under pressure to try to buckle under pressure the next time. And so I think we really have to think about what we can do now to both strengthen our laws and our institutions so that if people without integrity are the ones involved in the counting of the ballots next time, there's going to be a potent response that is in line with the rule of law and not in line with what any particular political leader might want.
This was such a fascinating discussion, really eye-opening as well. Ece Temelkuran, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your perspective as a Turkish journalist, and Richard Hasen, thank you as well. Always great to see you.